Welcome to another edition of Let's Talk Ed. So today we're doing something a little different. By the way, it's been over a year now since we started Let's Talk Ed with Prof. Chris. So over the years, again, for those of you who have been listening, I've been sending in questions. So what I'm going to do today is I compile some of those questions to do my best to answer them today. So today's edition of Let's Talk Ed is going to be Talk to Professor Chris. All right. So let's start with some of the questions. What I would actually like to do at some point is we go live where you call in, right? We'll get to that point where you call in with all your questions. We'll answer it right on the spot. But for now, I think this is the best that we could do. Send in your questions. If we have enough questions, we'll make a whole segment or a whole episode out of it, just like we're doing today. So this is one of the questions that I get very often. So let's see if I can answer it. The question is, since you have spent almost all your whole career in education, in college education system, please walk us through your college experience. I kind of chuckled a little bit when I read this question because somehow it's very evident that I spent most of my time in college, right? So it says almost your whole career in college education system. Well, there's some truth to it. And the reason I say there's some truth to it is because I've spent most of my time in college. Where do I start? Let's just start with when I actually started teaching, right? When I got into academia, it actually started back in grad school. Grad school was where my teaching started. I was teaching full classes. I was a tutor for a minority engineering science center. And that is where my directors, my mentors, and my advisors always kept saying, Chris, I think you should really think about teaching. And of course, at that point, I was pursuing my engineering. I wasn't having any of that. I wasn't having anything have to do with teaching. I just wanted to finish my engineering. Of course, go make some money, right? That's what we all go to college for. So I wasn't entertaining any ideas of go teach, but I had a lot of those. In addition to that, maybe the writing on the wall was when students, some of whom were actually my own mates, would say the way you explained some of the concepts here were very, very good. Right, you should. So even my own friends were also hinting that I become a teacher in college. Okay. So fast forward from that, finished grad school, went into industry. I applied as an adjunct. I was teaching. I was slowly catching the teaching bug from that point. Fast forward again. Now I'm full-time academia. I'm doing consulting in the industry. Loved teaching. So I had opportunity actually to teach at an R1, a research institution, probably one of the biggest, by the way, universities in the US. That's when I had my first opportunity. And then I left there, went to a small liberal arts school, also my alma mater. That's where I went to college. Left there and to where I am right now, experience with community colleges. So again, in a nutshell, that has been my path or my college experience and how I got into academia. All right. I hope that answers our very first question of, since you have spent almost your whole career in college education system, please walk us through your college experience. So that is my college experience. Been there, done that, small, big, in between, done that. That is my college experience, and I hope this answers that question. Question number 2, probably one of my favorites, is what is your passion for college? Usually people will say, you're so passionate when it comes to college, right? More than anything else. Where does this passion come from? Well, that passion actually, as I mentioned, started way back when I was in grad school as a tutor or teaching assistant, and I will help students. Some, again, my own mates, and just knowing that, wow, I could really make a difference in the life of my students. Left Even as an adjunct in the industry, every time I stepped foot on a campus or in a classroom, I was making a difference. I was making these connections with my students, some of whom were so comfortable to share with me, right? And this was when I was an adjunct. I wasn't even a full-time instructor. When I became a full-time instructor, full-time lecturer, I will have students come to my office during my office hours to confide in me, to tell me, how I was helping them. And to me, that made a whole lot of difference for me. Till today, and I'm talking 15 years later, there are students that I will pick up the phone, I still talk to. My students that have gotten married, weddings that I've attended, now they're having kids. So this is a real life connection I have developed with my students over the years. And to me, that is the passion that I have for college. Additionally, college is also where I see as a life-changing opportunity for everyone. So I always figured if I could advise anyone the best that I can while they're in college, since this is where you're going to mold your life, what your life is going to be moving forward is going to be in college. What you decide to do is going to be in college. So what better way to make a difference? What better way to advise? What better way to connect and make sure that students are moving in the right direction? And to me, ultimately, that has always been the passion, and hence the reason I'm actually doing this podcast, because I always feel like I have connected in the past with some of my students. Why should I stop now? All the advice I've shared in the past, I could also share today. So that is my passion with college. Let's move on to question number 3. Would you say you are an expert when it comes to college? I personally, very quick answer to that question is definitely not an expert. No. However, what I would say is experience, yes. I will be the first to get on the table, to wave my pom-poms and say, when it comes to college, in and out. And I've just told you kind of my overall journey through college. Small liberal arts school. By the way, the liberal arts school is probably one of the smallest colleges, universities in the United States. When I left there, as I mentioned before I got there, I was in one of the largest universities in the United States, and then in between now is my community college experience. So when it comes to college, in my humble opinion, I think I've covered all the bases, small, big, right in between. And that is what I'm talking about when I say experience, yes, but not an expert, okay? I really don't like using the experts. To me, expert seems flawless. You know it all, you know everything. Again, nothing against our experts that we have there, but I always like to go with experience, okay? So yes, let's go with experience and not an expert. Question number 4. If you could change one thing in college education, what would it be? Boy, is it one thing? I have quite a few. I have quite a few things that I will change about our current college education system, from curriculum to instruction modes to advising to getting students prepared for the real world, just name it. However, if there's one thing that I have to pick that I would change about our college education system, what would it be? What would it be? What it would probably be is bridging the gap. And what I mean by bridging the gap more so is now we're talking about entrepreneurship. Now we're talking about experience. So we need to be bridging the gap between our theory and the practical component of our education. A lot has been happening, but as I speak on this here, you do also realize that in the R1 research institutions, there's quite a few theory there. I'm not saying we're not looking at a practical application, but I think there has to be a bridge between that and also what the community colleges provide in terms of technical and hands-on, right? That's what I mean by practicality. So that's probably one thing that I would probably focus on immediately when it comes to the change. But also what I'm looking forward to do is this is going to be a whole segment, right? It's going to be the college system and then we'll go through different episodes of what needs to be changed. Curriculum could be a whole episode that we do. Instruction modes could be a whole episode, as well as advising. Okay, so we'll look at all the different areas. But to that question, very good question, very loaded question. To change one thing, as I listed it, there's quite a few, but one will be just bridging the gap. Question number 5, is it worth it? Meaning, is college education worth it? So let's start with, I have had episodes on this topic. You could go back and look at some of the old episodes. I invited people out here to share their views and opinions on college education. I'm going to take a minute here once again to talk about why college education is worth it. First of all, 200 years ago, maybe even goes further back, a system was set up, a pipeline, let's call it pipeline, for all the industries, companies, everything that you have, the cosmic that you have right now. College happens to be the pipeline that feeds all these different areas. So that system is in place that guarantees the next level opportunity, aka JOB, right? The opportunity for you to work. Currently, you're looking at anywhere from 70 to 75% of graduates are guaranteed some kind of opportunity within the system. So that alone lets you know that college education is worth it. It provides you the opportunity, right, for your next level. I also say, let's compare that with those who want to go into professional sports or are professional athletes. That opportunity, unfortunately, is about 1%. I know it's not apples to apples, but I'm just saying college education, right, yes, guarantees you and gives you the opportunity for the next level. That percentage is high, and I will always ride with that probability, okay? Now, why is it also important? College also provides you with the opportunity, whether it is what you want or not, it provides you the opportunity to really find yourself. I've had a lot of my students say, Professor Chris, 4 years, 5 years, sometimes even 6 years, I really don't feel like college was for me. And again, they had exceptions. I'm just saying, most of the time, it does provide you with the next level opportunity. Also, remember, when you go to college, it also helps you identify what it is that you don't want to do or you don't want to go into. So that in itself alone is an opportunity, okay? So please, I don't want to kind of dwell too much on this topic here. I love doing this here. I'm providing you the best way to kind of get through college, right? So I know there are things to work around so far as college goes, but so far as is it worth it? I said 100% it is worth it. We could talk about how to get through it, how to find the best major, how to find the best opportunity. But yes, that is all part of college. Okay. All right. Question number 6. Do you think it is time to reevaluate our whole college education system? Yes, I can actually tie it out to your question number 5. I think this is the big component. When either students are saying, oh boy, I don't think college is worth it, or I'm not getting my money's worth, I think this is where it boils down to. The advising has to be the very first thing that needs to be corrected to make sure that you're going into college to get the right thing that you want. So do I think the college system needs to be reevaluated? Yes. Different ways in which that could be done. What I have done also is, while we're waiting for this, and not to say this is not going on, every year, every semester, every program, every institution is looking at the best way to mold it to fit current trends. Now everybody's talking about entrepreneurship. Students want to get out of college very quickly. These are all part of the reevaluation process. It is going on. But for now, while that is going on, what can we do to get through college? It's kind of what I provide most of the time, of what I intend to do. So yes, absolutely 100%, our college system does need some reevaluation, and we'll touch on those also later. Okay? All right. Question number 7, last but not the least. Does our current college education system prepare students for the real world? Very good question. I didn't bring my water today, but we'll get through it. So, this is one of those questions I asked when I was a student. That everybody's going to keep asking, and there is always going to be improvements made to make sure that this is the ultimate goal. We are preparing students for the real world. Now, the challenge now is you are all doing very, very good so far as, real world preparation goes. The reason I say that is you are all trying to find ways to have some experience before you graduate. And I think that's a very, very smart move. 15, 20 years ago, right? Fortunately for some of us, we didn't even get the internships. They were not that available for any of us to do. So internships are probably one of the best ways for you students currently to get the real world experience before you get into the real world. It's going to come from an internship. This is why I always also suggest that students use the summers. If you're your junior year or your senior year during your summer, please, if you don't have to take a class, use that as an opportunity to find some kind of an internship, because that is the best way to get a real life experience before you graduate. Fortunately and unfortunately for you all, back in our day, because we didn't have those internship opportunities, the other thing that companies had in place is a lot of overhead. A lot of overhead for new employees to take 2 months, 3 months training on whatever software that a company was going to be using. These days, they will actually ask you if you have that experience with that software before they even look at your resume. Okay? So that means your friends that you're competing with for the same job are out there getting the internship opportunities, getting that experience, because they want to be one step ahead of you, which is why, again, I'm always suggesting that you take the summers off if you have an internship opportunity to do that. That is the best way that institutions are going to prepare you for the real world. Yes, you have the senior design projects. Yes, there's the last year that have you do projects that is very similar to the real world. Great, but it's nothing that comes close to the real experience of you getting an internship or an externship, okay? Some kind of experience. Even if you don't have any of those two things, what are you doing on your own time, learning the softwares, different software that's going to be needed in the field of your expertise? Okay, so I hope that helps. All right, last but not the least, what advice would you give to current college students? It's a very, very good and open-ended question. However, in the question it says current college students, so I will stick to that. Because usually there's different advice that I have for high school students that are going to college. I have different advice for freshmen that are in college. I have advice for sophomores and juniors that are in college, and I have advice for seniors who are getting ready to wrap up and go into the real world, all right? But since this specifically said current college students, let's focus on current college students. My best advice for current college students is to always focus on the end result and stay focused. What do I mean by that? If you want to be an astronaut, I hope you have a very huge picture of an astronaut in your room somewhere that you're looking at. If you want to be a basketball player, maybe you have Michael Jordan's poster somewhere that you're looking at. Whatever you want to do when you finish college, you have to have something that constantly reminds you. It doesn't have to be a picture. It could be somebody in that field that you're able to talk to. You could pick up the phone and say, hey, I was thinking about electrical systems, right? I know you're an expert in that area. What advice can you give me? You want to make sure that constantly, whatever field you are into, you have something that reminds you of that every single time. That is having the focus of the end result. There are going to be different steps you get to this end result. And some of those steps are going to be the classes that you're taking, the labs that you have to take, which you don't like, by the way. These are all different steps, but you have to stay focused on all these steps so ultimately it can get you to your end result. These days, a lot of distractions that you all have, so staying focused is going to be very, very important, and that will probably be the best advice I will have for current students. Talk to your instructors, talk to your advisors, whatever it's going to take for you to stay focused, you're going to do that with the ultimate goal that always reminds you of what you need to do. Okay. So that is it for this episode of Let's Talk Ed. Great questions, by the way. Please keep sending the questions. Again, what I would love to do is I've had opportunity to interview a lot of experienced people. So I've learned through that process, have a lot of the answers to all your questions. I think so. We'll get to the point where you get to call in with your questions and we'll answer them directly. In the meantime, send in all your questions, from your relationship questions in college, spending too much money in college, whatever it is. We'll take care of all your answers. With that, please subscribe if you haven't done so. Looking forward to the next episode of Let's Talk Ed. And please, I will use the same advice that I just gave you right now. Stay focused. Make sure you have the end result somewhere where you can always see it. Don't forget to subscribe. And we'll see you next time. Like I always say, there's always going to be a next time. So stay tuned for Let's Talk Ed.